The metal walls of the alien ship hummed with strange energy. Captain Jake Morrison opened his eyes slowly, feeling the cold floor beneath him. His head hurt badly, and his mouth was dry. He tried to move his hands, but found thick metal bands around his wrists. The bands were connected to the wall by heavy chains. Jake looked around the room. It was all silver metal with no windows. Strange lights came from the ceiling, making everything look blue and cold. He could hear voices speaking in a language he did not know. The sounds were sharp and clicking, like insects talking to each other. "Captain?" a voice called softly from across the room. Jake turned his head and saw Dr. Lisa Bennett sitting against the far wall. She had chains on her wrists, too. Her face was pale, and there was dried blood on her forehead. "Lisa, are you hurt?" Jake asked, trying to keep his voice low. "I'm okay. Just a cut on my head." "What about you?" Lisa looked worried as she checked him with her eyes. "I'm fine. Do you remember what happened to our ship?" Jake tried to think back, but his memory was fuzzy. "We were exploring near that strange energy reading. Then something hit us hard. Our engines stopped working, and we started falling toward that big ship. I remember Alex trying to send a message to Earth, but then everything went dark," Lisa said. Jake nodded. Their ship, the New Horizon, had been on a routine exploration mission when they found the alien vessel. It was huge, maybe 10 times bigger than their ship. They had tried to be careful, but something had pulled them in anyway. The door to their room opened with a soft hiss. A tall creature walked in. It had gray skin and 4 arms. Its head was long and thin, with large black eyes that had no white parts. It wore a white coat like a doctor might wear. Behind the creature came 2 others. They were shorter and had thick armor on their bodies. They carried weapons that looked like long metal sticks with glowing ends. The creature in the white coat looked at Jake and Lisa. It made clicking sounds and held up a small device. The device made beeping noises as it pointed at them. "Interesting," the creature said in perfect English. Jake was surprised to hear it speak their language. The male shows elevated stress patterns. The female displays protective responses toward her pack member. "Pack member?" Jake said. "We're not animals." The creature tilted its head. "You speak." This is unexpected, but not significant. Many lower species can mimic sounds. The neural patterns suggest basic intelligence, perhaps comparable to our domestic work animals. Lisa looked angry. "Lower species? We're human beings. We have names and families." "And silence," one of the armored creatures said. It stepped forward and pointed its weapon at Lisa. "Specimens will remain quiet during examination." Jake felt rage building in his chest. Nobody threatened his crew. He pulled hard against the chains, but they held tight. The creature in the white coat watched him with interest. Note the aggressive response when the female is threatened. This confirms pack behavior. The emotional attachment may be useful for future tests. The creature spoke into a small device while watching Jake struggle. "What do you want with us?" Jake demanded. "I am Zixthala, xenobiologist of the Kethmoran Federation. You are specimens from the 3rd planet of System G7742. Your species shows promise for study. We wish to understand your biology and behavior patterns before we harvest your world's resources." The words hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. "Harvest our world? Your planet has useful materials. Your species was thought to be the dominant life form, but initial scans show you are weak and short-lived. The Council has approved extraction operations to begin within 1 of your years." Lisa looked terrified. "You're talking about killing everyone on Earth." "Not killing. Relocating. Some specimens will be preserved for continued study. The rest will be processed efficiently. Your species seems too fragile to survive the transition to useful labor." Jake's mind raced. Earth had billions of people, His wife Sarah, his daughter Emma, his parents, all of them would die if these creatures had their way. He had to do something, but the chains were too strong. "Please," Lisa said, "we're not animals. We have art and music and science. We have feelings and dreams." Zixthala made a sound that might have been laughter. Feelings are chemical reactions. Dreams are neural misfires during rest periods. We have studied thousands of species. You are not special. The creature walked closer to Lisa. "However, your emotional responses are stronger than most. This may provide interesting data." It held up a thin metal rod with a sharp point. "This will collect tissue samples. The pain will be minimal." "Don't touch her," Jake said, his voice low and dangerous. "The male shows territorial behavior." "Excellent. We will test the limits of this response." Zixthala moved the rod toward Lisa's arm. Jake exploded into motion. He pulled so hard against the chains that his wrists started bleeding. The metal bands cut into his skin, but he didn't care. He had to protect Lisa. He had to protect his crew. The armored creatures stepped forward, raising their weapons. Zixthala held up one of its 4 hands to stop them. "Wait, record this behavior." The specimen shows remarkable determination despite physical limitations. The stress hormones are reaching dangerous levels for most species, yet it continues to function. Jake glared at the alien scientist. "You want to know about humans? Here's what you need to know. We don't give up. Ever. You can chain us, hurt us, even kill us, but we will never stop fighting." "Primitive aggression," Zixthala said, but there was something different in its voice. "Still, the intensity is unusual. We will need to study this further." The creature turned to leave, then stopped. "Your crew is scattered throughout the ship. Each is being held in similar conditions. Their safety depends on your cooperation during testing." Jake felt cold inside. The aliens had his whole crew. Commander Alex Turner, who had a new baby at home. Pete Collins, who was getting married next month. Sam Rodriguez, who sent money to his sick mother. Nina Hayes, who wanted to be the first human to map a new galaxy. "I understand," Jake said quietly. "Good. Testing begins tomorrow. Rest well, specimens. You will need your strength." The aliens left the room. The door closed with a soft hiss, leaving Jake and Liza alone in the cold. Blue light. "Jake," Lisa whispered, "what are we going to do?" Jake tested the chains again, more carefully this time. He looked around the room, studying every detail. The walls, the lights, the door. Everything. "We're going to survive," he said. "And we're going to save Earth." "How?" "They have advanced technology, weapons, and we're chained up." Jake looked at her with a small smile. "They think we're weak animals. They have no idea what humans are really capable of when we're fighting for our families." In the distance, they could hear the clicking voices of their captors. The aliens were planning their next experiments. They were confident in their superiority. They had no idea what they had just started. 3 weeks had passed since the aliens captured Jake and his crew. Every day brought new tests and experiments. Zixthala and its team of scientists poked and prodded the humans, taking blood samples and scanning their brains. They wrote down everything they saw, treating the humans like lab rats. Jake had learned to count time by the feeding schedule. The aliens gave them a gray paste that tasted like metal but kept them alive. He had also learned the names of some guards. The tall one with the scar on its face was called Vextar. The short one that always carried extra weapons was Colthin. Through the walls, Jake could sometimes hear voices from other rooms. Alex Turner was in the room next door. Jake had heard him talking to himself, probably trying to stay sane. Pete Collins was somewhere down the hall. His voice sounded weak, like he was getting sick. Dr. Lisa Bennett had become the aliens' favorite test subject. They were fascinated by her medical knowledge and how she cared for the other humans. Every day they brought her to their lab and asked her questions about human biology. The female shows advanced problem-solving abilities. Zixthala had told its assistants yesterday. She understands complex medical procedures. This should be beyond her species' capabilities. Lisa always came back tired and angry. She whispered to Jake about what she learned during the tests. The aliens were studying human emotions, trying to understand why humans acted differently from other species they had captured. They don't understand us at all, Lisa told Jake one night. They think our feelings make us weak. They can't figure out why we don't just give up and accept our fate. Jake had been thinking about this too. The aliens were clearly more advanced than humans. Their technology was amazing, their weapons were powerful, and their ship was huge. But they seemed confused by simple human behavior. On the morning of the 22nd day, everything changed. The door opened, and Zixthala entered with 2 guards. Behind them came a new alien that Jake had never seen before. This one was bigger than the others, with darker skin and metal implants on its head. It wore a red uniform instead of the white coats or gray armor of the others. "This is War Leader Thex Malin," Zixthala said. "He has come to observe our progress." The war leader looked at Jake and Lisa with cold, black eyes. "These are the specimens causing delays in the harvest schedule?" "They are more complex than initial reports suggested," Zixthala replied. "Their behavioral patterns are unusual. They show resistance to psychological pressure and maintain pack loyalty under extreme stress." "Irrelevant," Thex Malin said. "We need to test their pain tolerance and breaking points. The harvest begins in 30 days, whether your research is complete or not." Jake felt ice in his stomach. 30 days. That was all the time Earth had left. "Bring the engineer," Thex Malin ordered. 2 guards left and returned with Pete Collins. Jake's heart sank when he saw his friend. Pete was thin and pale, with dark circles under his eyes. His hands shook as the guards forced him to his knees. In the center of the room, "Pete," Jake said, "how are you holding up?" Pete looked up with a weak smile. "Better than these ugly aliens think, Captain." One of the guards hit Pete in the back of the head for speaking. Pete fell forward but pushed himself back up to his knees. The guard raised its weapon to hit him again, but Thex Malin stopped it. "No. They will use the neural probe. I want to see how the pack reacts when one member experiences extreme pain." Zixthala held up a device that looked like a metal spider with sharp legs. "This will cause intense neural stimulation. The pain will be considerable, but the subject will remain conscious." "No," Lisa said, pulling against her chains. "Please don't hurt him." "The female shows predictable distress," Thex Malin noted. "What about the male?" Jake was fighting every instinct in his body. He wanted to break free, to protect Pete, to make the aliens pay for what they were doing. But the chains held him tight. His wrists were bleeding from pulling against the metal bands. "Please," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Take me instead. I'm the captain. I'm responsible for my crew." "Interesting. The pack leader offers to sacrifice himself for a subordinate." Thex Malin moved closer to Jake. "This is not logical behavior. It's human behavior," Jake said. "Something you'll never understand." The war leader gestured to its guards. "Apply the neural probe. I want to see how far this pack loyalty extends." The guard moved toward Pete with the spider-like device. Pete looked up at Jake with fear in his eyes, but also with determination. "It's okay, Captain. I can handle it." Something inside Jake snapped. The sound was so quiet that only he heard it, but it felt like a chain breaking in his mind. These aliens thought they could hurt his crew. They thought they could torture his friends and study their pain like it was just data They were wrong. Jake had been in the military before he became a space explorer. He had trained for situations like this. He had learned to fight, to survive, to protect others. But more than that, he had learned to think like a human. The aliens saw the chains on his wrists and thought that made him helpless. They saw his emotional reactions and thought that made him weak. They saw his loyalty to his crew and thought that made him predictable. They had no idea what they had just awakened as the guard reached for Pete with the neural probe. Jake tested his chains one more time, not pulling against them, but feeling them, understanding them, looking for the weak point that every human-made thing had to have. The aliens had made one crucial mistake. They had built their restraints to hold creatures that gave up when things got hopeless. They had never dealt with a species that got more dangerous when cornered. Jake found what he was looking for. The chain attached to his right wrist had a small defect where two links had been welded together. The weld was slightly imperfect, probably invisible to alien eyes, but Jake's human fingers could feel it. He had been working on that weak link for 3 weeks, moving it just a little bit. Each day, the metal was starting to crack. The guard lowered the neural probe toward Pete's head. Pete closed his eyes and tried to prepare for the pain. "Stop," Jake said quietly. Dex Malin laughed. "You have no power here, human. You are a specimen in a laboratory." "No," Jake said, and his voice was suddenly different, harder, more dangerous. "I'm a human being, and you just made the biggest mistake of your life." The chain on his right wrist snapped. Jake Morrison was free. The room exploded into chaos. Jake's military training took over completely. He grabbed the broken chain and swung it like a whip, striking the guard holding the neural probe. The alien dropped the device and stumbled backward. Jake rolled to his feet, his left hand still chained to the wall, but his right hand free. He caught the neural probe before it hit the ground and drove it into the neck of the nearest guard. The alien screamed and fell. Jake grabbed its weapon and turned toward Dex Malin. "You want to study humans?" Jake said, raising the alien weapon. "Here's your first lesson. You don't hurt humans. Not ever." The war leader reached for its own weapon, but Jake was faster. The alien energy blast hit Dex Malin in the chest, sending him flying across the room. Alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Guards were running toward their location. Jake used the alien weapon to blast the chain holding his left wrist. Then he freed Lisa and Pete. "Can you fight?" Jake asked Pete. Pete grabbed a weapon from one of the fallen guards. "Just try to stop me, Captain." Lisa picked up the neural probe and examined it quickly. "This might be useful. I think I understand how their nervous system works now." "Good," Jake said, "because we're going to need every advantage we can get." The door burst open and more guards poured in. Jake smiled grimly. The aliens were about to learn why humans had survived every disaster their planet had ever thrown at them. They were about to learn why you don't mess with Earth. The alarm sounds echoed through the alien ship like angry screams. Red lights flashed in the corridors as more guards rushed toward the holding area. Jake Morrison stood over the fallen war leader, holding the alien weapon steady. His crew was free, but they were still trapped on a ship full of enemies. "We need to move," Jake said. "They'll send everything they have at us." Lisa Bennett was checking Pete Collins, who was still weak from weeks of testing. "He needs medical attention, but he can walk." "I'm fine," Pete said, though his voice was shaky. "Just point me toward the nearest alien and give me a weapon." Jake looked at the door where guards would appear any moment. "We need to find the others. Alex, Sam, Nina, and the rest of the crew. Then we need to get off this ship." "The ship is huge," Lisa said. "How do we find them?" Before Jake could answer, the door burst open. 6 guards rushed in with weapons raised. Jake dove behind an overturned table, pulling Lisa and Pete with him. Energy blasts hit the walls around them, leaving smoking holes in the metal. Jake Morrison. A voice called from the doorway. It was Zix Thala, the alien scientist. Surrender now, and your punishment will be minimal. Continue to resist, and we will be forced to terminate you. Jake looked at his friends. Lisa was holding the neural probe, like a weapon. Pete had grabbed a metal rod from one of the broken chains. They were scared, but determined. You want to terminate us? Jake called back. Come and try. He jumped up and fired at the guards. His shot hit one alien in the shoulder, spinning it around. The other guards scattered, looking for cover. Jake had learned something important during his weeks of captivity. The aliens were used to dealing with species that gave up when faced with superior force. They had advanced technology, but they had never fought an enemy that refused to quit. Move, Jake ordered. His military training took over completely. He had fought in wars before becoming a space explorer. He knew how to turn any situation into a tactical advantage. They fought their way out of the room and into the corridor. Jake led them toward the area where he thought the other crew members were being held. The ship's layout was confusing, but he had been listening to sounds through the walls for 3 weeks. This way, Jake said, pointing down a side corridor. I think Alex is somewhere down there. They moved carefully, checking each corner. The aliens had not expected a fight inside their own ship. Their security was designed to keep prisoners in their cells, not to stop an armed rebellion in the corridors. Jake found Alex Turner in a room 2 levels down. The door was locked with an electronic system, but Pete had always been good with technology. Even weak from his captivity, he managed to short-circuit the lock. Jake? Alex called out as the door opened. Thank God. I heard the alarms. Are we escaping? We're trying, Jake said, breaking Alex's chains. How are you holding? Up? Alex stood up slowly. He looked thin and tired, but his eyes were sharp. Better than they think. I've been listening to their communications. I think I understand some of their language now. Good. We need every advantage we can get. They found Sam Rodriguez in the next room. The navigator was weak but alert. Captain, they've been asking me about Earth's defenses. I didn't tell them anything, but they seemed very interested in our military capabilities. They're planning the invasion, Jake said grimly. We have to stop them. Nina Hayes was in a room at the end of the hall. When they freed her, she immediately started talking about what she had observed. They're not as organized as they want. U.S. to think, Nina said. Their command structure is rigid. They follow orders without question, but they can't adapt when things go wrong. That's their weakness, Jake realized. They've never faced an enemy that thinks outside their rules. The group moved through the ship, looking for the remaining crew members. They found Kate Murphy in a lab where the aliens had been testing her engineering skills. She had been forced to work on human technology, helping the aliens understand Earth's capabilities. I'm sorry, Captain, Kate said. They made me show them how our engines work. It's not your fault, Jake said. Did you learn anything about their technology? Kate smiled despite her exhaustion. More than they think. Their systems are advanced, but they're built for efficiency, not security. I think I can cause some problems for them. They found Tony. Walsh in the worst condition. The aliens had been using him for medical experiments, testing how much damage a human body could take. He was barely conscious when they freed him. We need to get Tony to the medical bay, Lisa said. He's hurt. Badly. No, Tony whispered. Save yourselves. Don't let them hurt Earth. Jake knelt beside his friend. We're all getting out of here. That's an order. As they moved through the ship, Jake began to understand the aliens' biggest mistake. They had separated the humans, thinking this would. make them easier to control. But humans were stronger when they worked together. Each crew member had learned something different during their captivity. Alex had learned their language and communication systems. Sam knew about their military plans. Nina understood their weaknesses. Kate had studied their technology. Lisa had discovered their biology. Even Pete, despite his condition, had valuable information about their security systems. Together, they were no longer helpless prisoners. They were a team with a mission. "We can't just escape," Jake told his crew as they hid in a maintenance corridor. "If we run, they'll still invade Earth. We have to stop them here." "How?" Alex asked. "This ship has thousands of crew members." "We're just 9 people. We're 9 humans," Jake corrected. "And we're fighting for our families, our friends, our whole world. That makes us more dangerous than any alien weapon." The ship shuddered around them. Through the walls, they could hear alien voices shouting orders. The crew was trying to organize a search, but they were confused by the humans' tactics. "They're dividing their forces," Nina observed. "They're not used to fighting an enemy that moves through their ship like we do." Jake looked at his crew. They were tired, hurt, and scared, but they were also angry. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. When they decided to harvest Earth, they had awakened something in the humans that they could never understand. "Listen to me," Jake said. "We're not just fighting for our lives anymore. We're fighting for every person on Earth, every child, every parent, every friend we've ever known. The aliens think they can just take our world because we're weak." He raised the alien weapon he had captured. "They're about to learn why that's the biggest mistake they've ever made." The crew looked at their captain with new determination. They had been victims for 3 weeks, but that was over now. They were humans, and humans didn't give up. "What's the plan, Captain?" Pete asked. Jake smiled grimly. "We're going to teach these aliens the most important rule in the galaxy. You don't hurt humans, not ever." The hunt was about to begin. But the aliens were no longer the hunters. They were the prey. The humans had been free for 6 hours. In that time, they had turned the alien research ship into a battlefield. Jake Morrison led his crew through the corridors like a pack of wolves, using every advantage they could find. Kate Murphy had been right about the alien technology. Their security systems were designed to keep prisoners in, not to stop enemies moving freely through the ship. The humans used maintenance shafts, ventilation systems, and service corridors to move around unseen. "Their patrols are too predictable," Nina Hayes whispered as they watched a group of guards march past their hiding spot. "They follow the same routes every time." "That's because they've never had to hunt anyone before," Jake replied. "They're used to being the predators." The crew had split into teams. Alex Turner and Sam Rodriguez were working to access the ship's communication systems. If they could send a message to Earth, they might be able to warn their home planet about the coming invasion. Lisa Bennett was treating Tony Walsh's injuries in a small medical storage room they had found. Tony was getting stronger, but he was still hurt badly. Lisa had also been studying the alien medical equipment, learning how their bodies worked. "Their nervous systems are different from ours," Lisa had told Jake. "They're more efficient, but also more vulnerable. If we can disrupt their neural pathways, we can stop them without killing them." "We're past the point of being gentle," Jake had replied. "They were going to wipe out Earth. They were going to kill everyone we love." Pete Collins and Kate Murphy were working together to sabotage the ship's systems. Pete understood the alien security networks, and Kate knew how to break them. They had already caused 3 power failures and disabled half the ship's internal sensors. Jake was hunting. He moved through the ship like a ghost, striking at alien patrols and disappearing before they could respond. Each attack was carefully planned. He would hit a group of guards, take their weapons, and vanish into the maze of corridors. The aliens were starting to panic. They had never faced an enemy like this before. Every species they had conquered had either surrendered quickly or fought. Them in open battle. The humans did neither. "Report," Zixthala demanded as it entered the ship's command center. The alien scientist looked tired and frustrated. "The humans continue to evade our search teams," reported Commander Vextar. "They have killed 17 crew members and wounded 32 others. They seem to appear and disappear at will." "How is this possible?" Zixthala asked. "There are only 9 of them aboard a ship with 3,000 crew members." "They are using tactics we have never encountered," Vextar admitted. "They strike without warning, then retreat before we can respond. They seem to know our ship better than we do." Zixthala looked at the tactical display. Red markers showed where the humans had been spotted. The pattern made no sense according to standard military doctrine. "They are not following logical attack patterns," Zixthala observed. "They should be trying to reach the escape pods or the docking bay. Instead, they are moving deeper into the ship." "Perhaps they are lost," suggested another officer. "No," Zixthala said slowly. "They have a plan, but what are they trying to accomplish?" The answer came 20 minutes later. Alarms began blaring throughout the ship as the main power core started to overload. In the engine room, Kate Murphy finished her work on the alien reactor systems. "That should get their attention," Kate said into her communicator. "Jake, I've set the reactor to overload in 30 minutes. That should force them to evacuate the ship." "Good work," Jake replied. "But we're not evacuating. We're taking this ship." In the communication center, Alex Turner and Sam Rodriguez had finally broken through the alien encryption. They were sending a message to Earth, but they had also discovered something terrible. "Jake," Alex's voice came through the communicator. "You need to hear this. The invasion fleet is already on its way to Earth. This ship was just the advance. Scout, there are 50 more ships coming." Jake felt cold dread in his stomach. Even if they stopped this ship, Earth was still doomed. Unless... "Can you access their fleet communications?" Jake asked. "I think so." "Why?" "Because we're going to send them a message they'll never forget." Jake made his way to the ship's command center. The aliens had concentrated their forces there, trying to protect their most important systems. But Jake had learned something about alien psychology during his weeks of captivity. They feared the unknown. They could deal with enemies that followed their rules, but they panicked when faced with something they couldn't understand. Jake walked into the command center alone. He was outnumbered 50 to 1, but he wasn't afraid. He was angry. "Attention, alien crew," Jake said in a loud, clear voice. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel New Horizon. I want to talk to whoever is in charge." The aliens raised their weapons, but nobody fired. They were too shocked by his appearance to react immediately. "I am Zixthala, senior researcher of this vessel," the alien scientist said. "Surrender now, and you will be terminated quickly." Jake laughed. "You still don't understand, do you? We're not surrendering. We're not running. We're taking your ship. Impossible. You are only 9 primitive creatures against 3,000 trained soldiers." "We're 9 humans," Jake corrected. "And we're fighting for our families. Do you know what that means?" Before Zixthala could answer, the lights went out. Kate had triggered the next phase of her plan. Emergency power kicked in, but the ship's systems were failing one by one dot in the darkness. Jake moved. His military training took over completely. He had fought in wars where he was outnumbered and outgunned. He had learned to use every advantage, no matter how small. The aliens panicked. They fired their weapons randomly, hitting each other in the confusion. Jake moved through them like a storm, striking hard and fast. When the emergency lights came back on, Half the command crew was unconscious. Jake stood in the center of the room, holding Zixthala by the throat. "Now we talk," Jake said. "Your reactor is about to explode. Your ship is crippled. Your crew is scattered. And my people are in control of your most important systems. What do you want?" Zixthala gasped. "I want you to send a message to your invasion fleet. Tell them that Earth is under human protection. Tell them that any ship that approaches our planet will be destroyed. They will not believe such a message from a primitive species." Jake tightened his grip. "Then you'd better make it convincing. Because if Earth is attacked, every human in the galaxy will know that aliens can be beaten. We'll teach every species you've conquered how to fight back." Zixthala's eyes widened. "You would start a galactic war?" "We would finish one," Jake said. "You started this when you decided to harvest our world. Now you get to live with the consequences." The alien looked around the destroyed command center. Its crew was defeated, its ship was dying, and the humans had proved that advanced technology meant nothing against determination and courage. "The message will be sent," Zixthala said quietly. Jake released the alien and stepped back. "Good. And here's something else for your records. You wanted to study humans? Here's what you need to know. We protect our own. We never give up. And we never forget." He looked around the room at the defeated aliens. "You don't hurt humans. It's the only rule that matters now." The invasion fleet would receive the message in 6 hours. By then, they would have to decide whether to face the wrath of a species that had just proved could turn any disadvantage into a weapon. The humans had won their first battle, but the war for Earth was just beginning. The message reached the Kethmoran invasion fleet 6 hours after Jake Morrison sent it. Admiral Corix then read the transmission 3 times before calling an emergency meeting of the fleet commanders. "This cannot be accurate," said War Leader Dexinox, looking at the data on his screen. "The advanced scout ship has been captured by 9 primitive specimens." The transmission came directly from senior researcher Zixthala. Admiral Corix then replied, "The authentication codes are correct. The humans have taken control of the research vessel." "Impossible," another commander said. "The ship had 3,000 crew members and advanced weapons. How could such a small number of primitives overcome them?" "Perhaps we underestimated this species," Admiral Corix then said quietly. "Back on." The captured ship, Jake Morrison, stood in the command center with his crew. They had been working for 2 days to understand the alien technology. Kate Murphy and Pete Collins had managed to get most of the ship's systems working again. "The reactor is stable," Kate reported. "I've also figured out how to operate their weapon systems." "Good," Jake said. "Alex, any word from the invasion fleet?" Alex Turner looked up from the communication station. "They're arguing among themselves. I can understand about half of what they're saying now. Some want to attack Earth anyway. Others want to retreat and report back to their home government." "What about Earth?" Lisa Bennett asked. "Have we been able to warn them?" Sam Rodriguez nodded. "I sent a message to Earth Command 12 hours ago. They should be preparing their defenses now." Jake looked out at the stars through the command center's main screen. Somewhere out there, 50 alien ships were deciding the fate of his home planet. Earth had some military defenses, but nothing that could stand against such a large fleet. "We need to do more than just warn them," Jake said. "We need to show the aliens that humans are not easy prey." "What are you thinking, Captain?" Nina Hayes asked. Jake turned to face his crew. They looked tired but determined. Over the past month, they had been prisoners, test subjects, and finally warriors. They had proven that humans could adapt to any situation. "We're going to Earth," Jake announced. "This ship has weapons and shields. If the invasion fleet decides to attack, we'll be there to help defend our planet." Jake Lisa said carefully. "We don't really know how to fly this ship, and there are only 9 of us. We've learned more about alien technology in 2 days than they learned about us in a month," Jake replied. "Besides, we have help." He gestured to the corner of the room where Zix Thala sat under guard. The alien scientist had been cooperating since Jake's ultimatum. It seemed genuinely shocked by how badly its species had misjudged humanity. "You would trust the alien?" Pete asked. "I would use every resource available," Jake corrected. "Zix Thala wants to live. It also wants to study us. The best way to do both is to help us get home safely." The alien scientist looked up. "Your species continues to surprise me. Most conquered peoples either submit completely or fight until they are extinct. You have found the third option." "What's that?" Alex asked. "You make your enemies respect you," Zix Thala said. "It is unprecedented in galactic history." 3 days later, the human-controlled alien ship dropped out of hyperspace near Earth. Jake felt his heart lift when he saw the blue and white planet hanging in the darkness. He was home. "Multiple contacts approaching," Sam reported. "Looks like the invasion fleet arrived ahead of us." Jake could see them on the screen. 50 massive alien ships moving toward Earth in formation. They were beautiful and terrible, like metal cities flying through space. "Earth Command is hailing us," Alex said. "They want to know whose side we're on." "Tell them we're coming home," Jake said. The battle for Earth began an hour later. The alien invasion fleet attacked Earth's orbital defenses while human warships rose from the planet to meet them. The fighting was fierce, but the aliens had superior technology, and Numbers.Jake brought his captured ship into the battle. The alien crew they had kept prisoner operated the weapon systems under human supervision. It was strange fighting alongside their former captors, but the situation had changed everything. "Target the lead ship," Jake ordered. "Show them what humans can do." Their ship's weapons tore into the alien flagship. The invasion fleet commander had not expected to face one of its own vessels turned against them. The psychological impact was enormous that other alien ships began to hesitate. They had come to conquer a primitive planet, but now they were fighting their own technology operated by the species they had underestimated. "Admiral Corexthan is requesting communication," Alex reported. "Put him through," Jake said. The alien admiral's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired and confused. "I am Admiral Corexthan of the Kethmoran Federation. I wish to speak with the human leader." "I'm Captain Jake Morrison. What do you want?" "We have received reports about your ... capabilities. Perhaps we were hasty in our assessment of your species." "You were planning to wipe out my entire planet," Jake said coldly. "Hasty doesn't begin to cover it." "We propose a ceasefire," the Admiral said. "We will withdraw our forces if you agree to negotiations." Jake looked at his crew. They had come so far from being helpless prisoners. Now they were negotiating with an alien invasion fleet as equals. "Here are our terms," Jake said. "You will withdraw all ships from Earth space immediately. You will never return to this system. And you will spread the word throughout your Federation about what happens when you threaten humans." "And if we refuse?" Jake smiled grimly. "Then you'll learn why we're the most dangerous species in the galaxy. We don't just fight to win. We fight to make sure our enemies never threaten anyone else we care about." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "Your terms are acceptable. The Kethmoran Federation will add Earth to the list of protected worlds. No alien ship will approach this system without permission." "Good," Jake said. "And one more thing. You'll release any humans you're holding captive and return them to Earth." "Agreed." The invasion fleet began to withdraw from Earth space. Jake watched them go, knowing that this was just the beginning. Word would spread throughout the galaxy about the species that had turned the tables on their would-be conquerors. 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood before the United Nations General Assembly. He wore his military uniform with new decorations, honoring his role in defending Earth. His crew sat in the front row, all of them now part of Earth's new space defense program. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Jake told the assembled representatives. There are species out there with technology we can barely imagine. But we've learned something important. Technology alone doesn't win wars. Courage, determination, and the willingness to protect what we love, those are the weapons that matter most. He looked out at the audience, thinking of all the humans who would never know how close they had come to extinction. The aliens learned a rule that day, Jake continued. A rule that now protects not just Earth, but every human in the galaxy. You don't hurt humans. It's the only rule that matters now. The assembly erupted in applause. Earth was no longer alone in the universe, but it was no longer helpless either. Humanity had earned its place among the stars through the oldest method, known to any species. They had fought for it, and they had won.